Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing PigShip and the Giant Wolf on the Nintendo Switch. Now this game is a retro Game Boy styled shoot 'em up that released on May 20th of 2022 and currently sells for $7.99 on the Nintendo Switch eShop. The game is published by Super Power Up Games and has a download size of 104 megabytes. Now just before jumping into the review, in case you don't follow the channel, I do want to preface this by indicating that I personally am a huge fan of challenging shoot 'em ups. And that perspective will be very important in the way I'll be judging this game, because do not be mistaken by its cutesy retro aesthetic, this is one extremely difficult shoot 'em up. However, if you are a fan of that extremely difficult, almost R-type shoot 'em up experience, this is a review you definitely will not want to miss. And as we jump in, just don't forget that if you are liking the content, one of the best ways to help support the channel is just to hit that like button. Now from a storyline perspective, you get a very short cutscene at the beginning setting up the general plot. You are one of the three little pigs just going about your normal day when unfortunately two of your brethren get abducted by the giant wolf. And unfortunately he rockets away with them aboard his spaceship. Now you're going to do just as any normal pig would do and jump into your heavy armed spaceship and fly on after them. Now as so far as a straightforward storyline, that's pretty much what you get. However, you pay attention to the environments themselves, they do tell their own story. Now gameplay-wise, this is a linear progression split up into 6 different levels. And if 6 different levels doesn't sound like a whole lot, trust me, with the grueling difficulty of this game, it's going to be taking hours of replaying them before you actually finish the game. Now, every level itself is set up in a very specific pattern, which is why I originally compared this game slightly to the R-Type series. Basically, this game is going to be testing not only your reflexes, but your ability to memorize the different obstacles. Now, your ship at all times is equipped with 3 different weapons. One single very powerful shot, one forward-facing double shot, and lastly, a shot that fires backwards and also at the same time at the top and bottom of your ship. As you start out the game, the availability of these 3 different weapons might even feel superfluous, and you will definitely gravitate more towards one. However, starting as early as the 2nd level boss, you'll see that you'll have to regularly swap between all 3 weapons because the whole game is designed around it. Now you'll also be presented at the beginning with 2 different difficulty modes. In the normal difficulty, your ship can take 3 hits before exploding. You also have an infinite number of continues and 3 lives per attempt. Lastly, also upon knocking down a complete group of enemies, you can acquire little star tokens which do slightly upgrade the power of your weapons. Now on the opposite end of the spectrum, in Bones mode, only 1 hit will kill you, you only have 1 life, and you are basically going for a top score. Now personally, I only played on normal mode. Why? Because even on normal mode, this game was beating me down. But not beating me down in a bad fashion, in a very challenging one, where when you do take a death, it is generally a fair one. Now lastly, there are also 2 other items you can collect throughout your gameplay, which is a shield and bombs. Now the shield does exactly what you think. Upon activation, it will make you invulnerable to shots for a certain period of time. And the bomb, on the other hand, is not a screen clearing bomb as we're generally used to in these type of games, but rather will emit a wave of shots in a 360-degree pattern. Once again, collecting these and using them at the exact right moment is a huge part of learning each level. Now, one last little indication that I would want to specify is that although taking 3 hits might feel like a lot in the normal mode, number 1, trust me, it's not, and number 2, that does not count making physical contact with an obstacle or a ship. That will be an instant kill in each and every scenario. Also, at the end of each and every level, you do have a boss fight. And I'm telling you right now, that is an immense highlight of this game. Starting at the 3rd level boss, some of the mechanics are so original for a shoot 'em up that I'm just going to present you with a few because there's some surprises I really want you to experience for the first time when you play through this game. And if you're looking at the screen right now, yes, you do actually have to play a sort of DDR game with your ship for the 3rd boss. Now, I'm just going to repeat this yet again. Although gameplay-wise and level design-wise, this game is truly a stroke of retro genius, it is a truly very challenging one. And if you only have a casual interest in shoot 'em ups, forget about this game right away. I mean, starting at level 3, they actually give you a checkpoint system, meaning that you don't have to restart the complete level at each and every try. However, rather than feeling like a reprieve, it just felt like the developers could go even more brutal with their level designs, making any little mistake have you restart that section. As a side note, the final part of level 3 took me over 40 tries to complete. However, the sense of satisfaction when I finally made it was truly amazing. If I had to point out one major problem, however, that I had with the game, is that unfortunately in true retro style, you have to complete all 6 levels in only one gameplay session. Unfortunately, if you close the game down or return to the main menu, you have to start over from scratch. And with the level of difficulty here and the number of tries you'll have to probably put into each level, a continue system would have been super appreciated. And I can see that one single point putting off a lot of people. However, if you can deal with that, so far on the gameplay perspective, this is a truly great offering. Now if we move on to the controls. Now this won't be a very long section because the controls are actually very simple here. First good news is you can move your ship either with the left analog stick or the D-pad, the choice is yours. Following that, you'll be using 3 face buttons for the main actions. B will fire your weapon, Y will activate your shield if you have a charge, and A will fire off your bomb, same thing if you have a charge. Following that, you'll be able to swap between your 3 main weapons using the L and R bumpers. Now it is important to note that there is not an auto fire here. You do have to mash the B button to fire off your weapon in a rapid fashion. Now, although I do think a lot of people would have appreciated an auto fire, it does give the game that old school arcade feel. Also, the game doesn't seem to pressure you into having to do an extreme amount of mashing because the weapons seem to have a global cooldown built into them, meaning that your fire rate is rather limited by that cooldown than the actual speed you're mashing at. On the responsiveness side, everything felt very tight, and that's exactly what you want for a demanding retro shooter like this. Now if we move on to the graphics and sound. Now graphically, obviously they were targeting this game to feel like a Game Boy game. And although I would argue that the graphics here are much too high resolution to have actually worked on the actual Game Boy, I do think that the overall feeling was very well delivered. And personally, the details in the different enemies on your ship itself, especially the bosses, actually just blew me away. I would even go so far as to say that the pixel art in this game actually lives up to its gameplay. Personally, if you're a fan of retro-style gaming, I can't see how you won't just fall in love with the artwork here. I mean, just the choice to, rather than use a traditional health gauge, to have your ship actually show the damage as it's taking hits was an excellent move. And frame rate wise, everything was very steady, hovering right around that 60 frames per second. The only slight moment of slowdown that I detected is when you launch your bombs and the screen gets filled with projectiles. I did notice a tiny bit of slowdown. Now if we move on to the sound side, and yet again, I was really amazed. We have another beautiful chiptune work of art. I mean, the sound design might not reach the levels of those Nintendo classics like The Legend of Zelda, but they are nonetheless memorable, and I loved hearing them all throughout my gameplay, even at that 40 tries or more. There's also a very generous variety of tracks. Pretty much every level has its own track, and even a lot of the levels with checkpoints actually has a music change after that checkpoint. Overall, you can really tell that this wasn't a simple weekend, quick and simple project here. This is a passion project. These people love retro style games, and they showed it in what they delivered. Now we move on to the verdict. And if this is one of the first reviews of mine you're watching, just to let you know, my full review scale is down below in the description of the video. Now in the case of PigShip and the Giant Wolf, I'm going to be scoring this game a 9, putting it at the low end of an excellent game. Now I do want to remind you, however, one last time, This score is from the viewpoint of someone who really enjoys a challenging shoot 'em up. If you only have a casual interest, this game will not feel like a 9 to you, and you even might most likely give up out of frustration. However, if you do fit the bill of someone who really enjoys those challenges, this game for me is a brand new gem on the Nintendo Switch. And the fact that this game at full price is only $7.99 is like a cherry on top. And in reality, there's only a couple of points that are keeping this from almost getting that perfect 10. One of which, and probably the most important, is the lack of the ability to continue your game in between sessions. And the only way to do so is to leave the game open in sleep mode. Unfortunately, that prevents you from playing any other games in between your sessions, and due to the level of difficulty behind this game, it would have been really appreciated. And the second that I think maybe a lot of people will point to is the lack of the ability to choose an auto fire button. But then again, if you have a turbo controller, you can solve that yourself. So now I want to hear what you're thinking of PigShip and the Giant Wolf. Are you going to be picking this game up? Are you going to give it a try? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget, on the way out, that if you did like this review, consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel if you aren't already, and clicking on the notification bell so you know when all my future content comes out. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.